SavageFiddler.com is meant to service the needs of a wide variety of experience levels. Some of you may be classical violinists that are trying fiddling out for the first time but have a lot of experience with your instrument. Others of you may be beginners and have never had a lesson before. This is meant to serve the needs of the very beginner. If your teacher has taught you another way to hold your instrument or your bow, I would recommend that you go ahead and use that method. This is just a way to get people started out. When you play the fiddle, like most instruments, you need to have a round hand. In fact, both of your hands and your arms need to make a round shape. The way that I teach a very beginner how to hold the bow is to put the thumb under the frog and the fingers just rest right on top. Now this eventually is not the bow hold that I would ever recommend using, but the one thing I really like about this bow hold is that it allows the wrist a certain amount of flexibility, and it also allows the thumb to get stronger so that when it travels inside the frog for an advanced bow hold, it already has some strength. It is really important that your thumb is curved while you're doing this. I teach this to my students as birds sitting on a wire. It should be pretty relaxed. Now, when I add my left hand, holding the instrument requires a round hand as well. Your fingers need to be round when you add them to the fingerboard so that eventually you're able to do things like play with vibrato or shift. It's also really critical that you have a nice, comfortable method of holding your fiddle and ideally a shoulder rest underneath. I use a Kuhn shoulder rest. A lot of other people enjoy sponges. Some people just use a towel. But I think it's pretty important to have some kind of traction under here. You never want to feel like you're holding the violin with your hand, like a lot of old-time fiddle players might have done, because today's new fiddling methods just require that we be able to play up the neck and play in tune. With my two round hands, I add my bow to the A string. Now I think of myself as driving up a mountain pass. The bow is my car, and the mountain pass is this area right here, between the bridge and the fingerboard. I want to make sure that my students are able to bow on the A and the D string and not play the other on accident. So I start out by teaching 4 A's. I make sure that my student is bowing in the middle of the bow rather than at the frog or at the tip. I start out with short bows, and we gradually grow these to be longer and longer. When you watch a beginning violinist, many times they will bow into their pocket, and that's what we call bringing the arm back. You want to think about your bow arm as a door that opens at a hinge, and move the forearm out. I always tell my students, you want to keep the bow arm in front of your body. You never want to go off to the side. If you do, this is what will happen. And you might get a fiddle player that sounds like this. If you see a lot of motion in your student's body, you want to make sure that they're actually bowing with their wrist. This is a very tricky issue that takes a lot of fiddle players many years to overcome. If you're flexible, relaxed, and both hands are round, you should be able to get a pretty good sound. Best of luck.